uh, 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 production and selling transactions. So that is previously is impossible to do because that means we have to connect all these multiple systems into to each other, which is quite difficult, and also a lot of people are not really comfortable doing it. But by having a single ledger to record all the important information, so we can have a much clearer visibility, so all the stakeholders can actually benefit from it. So they can have a better business understanding.
That's an amazing answer. Can I have a follow-up question, sir? Just one follow-up question. Will it revolutionize your industry? Are you hoping that your industry in particular would be revolutionized by blockchain, or is that overstating it?
Uh, yeah, I think it will evolve at this moment. I'm not. I don't know, but maybe this pandemic situation will accelerate these changes because, like it or not, then a lot of people have to go on board digitally, right? And also in some because we have less mobility, so there is no way we can go to the field and check everything by ourselves. So this shared information is becoming more and more important, and transparency and visibility is. So I think this pandemic situation, even though right now maybe it seems bleak for a lot of people, but actually it might accelerate all these changes.
Interesting. All right. So thank you, Pak Imran. I'm going to go over to the second person on my virtual right, who is Ibu Mulia Dewi Karnadi. And the question, I'm just going to repeat the question for your convenience. What is the impact that your business can get by using blockchain, and how does it does so? Go ahead now.
All right. Thank you so much, Pandu. And Pak Imran and Pak Diki, really nice to meet you. And of course, all the virtual audience that we have here, right? So I think the benefit of a blockchain is really like a tremendous, if I may, because in online pajak, we already implemented the blockchain since a few years back. Yeah. And the benefit that we are feeling is number one, basically is really processes. And then second, definitely fraud will be like a really eliminate as well. And not to mention increase in terms of efficiencies and the speed. The speed is really like a almost real time kind of a thing though. Yeah. And last but not the least, of course, it's gonna be like a increasing like the optimizations as well as a saving to our wajib pajak or corporate customers or individual customer who use it. So that's really the impact that everybody feel it throughout the blockchain's kind of implementation in online pajak.
Interesting. So Pak Imran mentioned mostly more towards transparency and end-to-end monitoring, and you're also mentioning monitoring and optimization, basically. Yeah. I would like to have a different question, and this is actually related to what Pak Imran mentioned. The pandemic situation has changed the way we do work, and how will it affect online pajak?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be like impacting a lot because this COVID-19 kind of a pandemic is not gonna be like over very soon. Lots of analysts are predicting within the 2 to 3 years, and then after the 2 to 3 years, hopefully God forbids, but that's not gonna be like another COVID-20 or whatsoever, right? Yeah, but then this is really like a good time that we maximizing and use all the available kind of a technology for all the humankind as well as improving our business processes though. And I'm a big believer that in today's context, especially during this kind of situations, right? The blockchain's kind of a usage is gonna be like a further accelerated, and for all the company that already pioneered in this process, I think we might take like a leadership kind of a position and in helping out the people, yeah, to really use this technology. Because can you imagine like at the end of the day, the things that we usually do in our daily normal used to be normal days, it has to happen somehow, somewhat. And whether we like it or not, with the smaller kind of a globalization as well, we are connected one to another. For example, in the online pajak kind of a perspective, we are taking care of our customers. We are taking care the report to the authority body. When we said like the authority body is not only like the Dirjen Pajak, Perbendaharaan or a treasury itself, but also to the banks. And banks, when I said like a banks, it involved like a multiple banks, really like a multiple banks. And then the usage is gonna be like gonna be more and more, because can you imagine that the technology can support you like a recap all those report directly to their ledgers without any further human entry or a kind of manual kind of a processes anymore. So yeah, I'm a big believer that it's gonna be accelerated further.
Thank you, Ibu Mulia, for that amazing answer. I would like to ask actually virtual audience to give a big hand in their own homes to our first two speakers. And I'm going to move over to Pak Diki Silent, who is the managing director of Petestria. And we just saw your video as well, and it was a very interesting video, if I may say. And a lot of us are actually also very curious about the first question that I
Yeah.
mentioned. What would be the impact of blockchain is the kind of business that you do, and how will it be able to do so?
Okay.
Go ahead, Pak.
Okay, thank you so much, Pandu, and nice meeting you, Bu Mulia, and as always, Pak Imran. we'll meet again. And again, as always, I think I've been invited to many webinar in terms of blockchain technology, and all the buzz in this industry. And I always started with the disclaimer, because unlike Bu Mulia in Pajak that has been using the technology for several years, actually we just embarking this technology in only a few months. In fact, we just sealed the deal with one of our customers in implementing the blockchain. So we are very in a very early stage. We are in fact learning in that sense, and therefore I think when I was invited and when I'm invited in this kind of webinar, the intention is always about learning. So I think thanks a lot for inviting. But again, to answer your questions, and again, I will also answer the question in terms of how this technology will revolutionize the industry as well. Yeah. So as we know, in when we go into the competition, is always we need to find some kind of differentiation, right? We need to find some kind of competitive advantage, and when because we are dealing with competition which is quite fierce in the market, especially for a commodity like chicken, like chicken is chicken, like how could be different between chicken to the other chicken, like this is chicken and the other is chicken. But again, I think when we learn that there's a lot of things that can be differentiated in this industry, and one of the thing is actually when we go into the opportunity and the market assessment, that since we are operating in Indonesia, which is we know we are a predominantly a Muslim country. Halal is a big thing in Indonesia. So, in fact, as we always discuss, people who even not practicing Muslim, when they come to halal, they always become a very particular. Like they don't pray, they're not salat, for instance. But if they are given some kind of pork, for instance, they will not be able to. They will more. I think most probably they will refuse. So halal is a big thing. Now, but when we come to halal, halal is also about quality, right? It's about quality. It's about how the chicken is being processed into a good quality product. And so the range from halal to quality, the other element is actually trust. How could I know that this product is actually really trusted? It's really halal. It's really a good quality. And therefore, when we discuss, and with the help with Pak Imron and the team from Hara, when we discuss, it's actually blockchain will enable us, to build that trust to our consumer and to our customer, because we are really opening up ourselves in terms of how the chicken is actually coming from the farm. You see the video, like the from the farm and up to the chicken is ready to be sent to our customers. The process is really transparent. It's really traceable. Where is it come from? How is it being processed? Is it really being processed in a good manner? So all those things is actually being recorded in. And again, I think the beauty of blockchain is something which is immutable as well. So it's the data is recorded and cannot be changed, right? So therefore, one of the things is as well for us is actually when we embrace into this technology, we are committing ourselves that we are going to be producing a good quality product, which is halal Sharia compliance. But again, I think the whole issue is on the quality, halal, and trust. Now, I think I'm going to answer also the question in terms of how this going to be revolutionize the industry. And I think the question has
Yes.
always been in it. And poultry industry has always been quite traditional, like very traditional. In fact, how can be poultry become technology-led industry? But again, I think by bringing the blockchain into this industry, this will eventually, the way I see it, will push other parties as well to become into a big ecosystem. That when we someday the idea and the dream is actually when you guys are the consumers are eating their chicken, they can really believe that they can really trust that this is a good quality halal product. Why? Because it's recorded, it's being like a process in a good quality manner, and nobody can change it. So I think I really believe that this will revolutionize the. Now, of course, the good thing is actually we are starting it, so hopefully we will be the forefront in in the changing of this industry. But I don't know how fast it's going to be, but we believe this someday will become a big things in our poultry industry. So that's it, Pandu.
That is an amazing answer, and I would like to welcome you actually to the blockchain
Thank
ecosystem.
you,
Then,
thank you.
and I would like to basically just summarize several things. And we started with Pak Imran mentioning that the focus is basically in transparency, end-to-end monitoring, and basically helping out the supply chain and also the financing part. We then continued with Ibu Mulia, who also mentioned about collaboration, especially in these pandemic times, and then monitoring as well. And then we ended up basically with Paniki, which who focused basically on trust and the competitive advantage, which I think is an amazing answer because when we're talking about the trust of it, it's the crux of a lot of blockchain architectures and the way we focus. And thank you for elaborating. There are several questions from the audience. These are actually directed to one of the speakers, but I think these can be asked to all of you. And I would probably begin with Pak Diki first.
Okay, sure.
So, have you had any problems in implementing blockchain? And can you share your problems?
Yeah.
And let's not just talk about the theoretical. Let's also talk about the practical.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm going. That's the question. Go ahead, Padiki.
yeah, thanks a lot for the question. It's a great question. So I think the biggest hurdle is actually since again the industry is very traditional. So embracing such a new technology, even for other industry, is a big leap for us. Big. There's a lot of discussion in terms of big investment. How can we really make sure that this investment is actually turned into something meaningful for the business? So that's the big challenge that when we started the journey. The second is actually in terms of the commitment, because when we committed into this project, then we committed that we will be very transparent. Anybody can see our process. And it's not easy. And when we and that's why, as I always say, blockchain for us is not only external oriented, but also internal oriented. Because when we embrace and committed into this taking this technology, then I talked to the team, to my team, that from now on nobody can play around with the data. In the past they put the data, the chicken coming a bit sakit-sakit dikit, unhealthy a bit, it's okay. Put it and they put it into a process. But now they cannot do it because the minute they do it, then we will know who is actually doing that. It can be traced, who is actually committing that fraud. And therefore we are educating the team that by embracing this technology, then we are really committed to a good business and production process, and therefore it's really a transformation in itself in internally, because we really now putting everyone to really put the right data, the right because whenever we put, I said to the team, you never put the data into the blockchain, then you cannot change it. You cannot change. Sorry, I put the wrong data, and you change it someday, for instance, because they will ruin the whole ecosystem. So therefore, the transformation is internal, but going into external is another challenge, because again, this is something new. And good thing is actually we are doing a lot of discussing with the government. For instance, we got help with the KNEKS, is the Committee National for Economy Syariah Indonesia, under Pak Jokowi as the head of the KNEKS, and Pak Ma'ruf Amin as the daily organizer, basically, so or the chairman. So but again, it's not easy, because they've been talking about this halal process and everything, and again, they are not really there yet, and therefore there's a lot of talking and discussing and educating. I talked to MUI. MUI is halal, is we cannot talk about halal without going to MUI, and MUI has been always also traditional. And when I talk to MUI, that now we have already something, a technology will help us, to really make sure that our halal is actually being following your requirement, but in a more transparent way. It's not easy, because as a new technology, there's a lot of sometimes skepticism. Sometimes even what is this? Is it going to now changing the way it's going to be doing? For instance, is it going to affect my work? For instance, so there's a lot of education discussing. And the good thing is actually we've been talking to a lot of things, the governor, the Bank Indonesia, the MUI, the government, and everyone is actually embracing this, and this why as I said, this will hopefully it will revolutionize not only poultry industry probably someday, but even in the bigger context, it's the whole meat industry, for instance, because this will help everyone. And therefore the challenges is from the commercial, from the internal, from the external, because we are new now. Of course, my boss is asking me, how this investment will be translated into, the return. That will still need to be proven, of course. But I said to my boss that if people get this, customer get this, consumer get this in the quality that we are promising to our consumers.
Yes.
That's, I think, the things that we are going into.
Well, that was an amazing answer. And you're saying basically that you're also basically not just adopting, but also endorsing
Yeah.
blockchain technology as well to all
Yes.
of the stakeholders. I
Yes.
imagine because of your industry, there's a lot of stakeholders from farm
Yes.
to
Yes.
fork.
Correct.
And yeah, I think we have some follow up questions, but I'm going to move
Sure. Sure.
over to
Sure.
Ibu Mulia first,
Sure.
and then we will go back to you. All right,
Sure.
Ibu Mulia, and just to repeat the question, what are any problems that you've experienced in actually executing blockchain in your field?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think if I may summarize it, if I may summarize it into like a three big pillars of a challenges, though, and I think it's the same as what Pak Diki already highlighted in the beginning. If we have to summarize it in the three big pillars, the number one pillar is a truly getting the political will or the endorsement coming from all the parties. Yeah, because Pak Imran touched a little bit about the transparency. I was mentioning like a eliminating all the frauds. By eliminating the frauds, then that increase all the transparency. That means we have to get like the political will coming from each and every stakeholder. No more mystery, right? Because the mystery can lead to the frauds later on. So we have to overcome that challenges, getting the political will coming from each stakeholder. The second one is truly understand all the business processes. Yeah, and I would say getting this the first two is really the longest time ever. Yeah, before like a Pak Diki, I understand you have to talk with lots of a stakeholder to get this support, right? And also like a deep understanding on the business flow. Then,
Yeah.
yeah, once we take care of this two challenges. Then basically, I would say like the third challenges on the technology perspective is far more manageable, because the moment we understand the process, we get the political and endorsements kind of things, then things are moving towards the right directions then. So those are the one that really took up lots of time indeed.
Amazing. Bu Mulia, thank you for your answer. I'm going to skip over to Pak Imran. And it's the same question. What are the issues? And since you're a veteran of this technology, you would be able to share, I believe. Go ahead, Pak Imran. Any problems and any issues implementing blockchain so far?
Oh, there's a lot of problems. I can tell you. But first of all, for a lot of people who know the technicality of blockchain knows that blockchain is still pretty much at the early stage. It's if I can tell you then something that probably everybody will know my age. It's like pretty much like the internet when you don't even have Netscape, you still have to use Gopher at the time. And
Gopher.
you see, yes, Gopher. So there's no Google, no nothing. So that's the condition of how rudimentary the blockchain technology is. So actually we first use blockchain for our own purpose, which is but because we have to connect with a lot of this is what happened when you implement blockchain commercially. Then you have to deal with a lot of other stakeholders. You cannot do this by yourself, just like online pajak and SRIA also. So then when the problem arises, right? Okay, not only in terms of the non-technical thing, which is quite tantamount, because a lot of people doesn't really know what the hell blockchain is,
Yeah.
but also on the technical side. So that's why slowly, but we have to, even though we don't initially project it ourselves as a chain, we are more of the applied side of it, right? But because we have to interface with a lot of people, so we have to build a lot of these basic things that people in the internet world are taking for granted. Like, for example, we have to build our own identity system. We have to build our own naming system, because otherwise the back-end programming of blockchain could be a nightmare without the naming system. We have to build a lot of this primitive stuff. So because the objective is to make more and more people like Sriya, for example, so to adopt this technology without having to be bothered by all these technicalities. So that's a problem by itself. But slowly we build more and more things to make adoption easier. And the second is, of course, in terms of the non-technical thing, which is sometimes can be more difficult. And also, people forget, like, for example, when we help Sriya get into blockchain, it's not like simply like plugging in blockchain into the system. Padiki is very modest. Sriya has to change its business process, because traceability is something easy to say, but in practice, that means Sriya has to be able in his business process differentiate every ticket. That is not easy. It took them months to do that, and that means also digitizing the whole manual process. And then also, like Padiki said, informing people, hey guys, this time when you put in something, you cannot delete or even adjust to that. So that also not easy, because then they become panicking, right? Oh, okay, what if I enter something incorrectly, not by purpose? Well, it's okay, but that means your mistake will be recorded there forever. Which is, and also you have to commend Sriya, for example, for being transparent. You can see every day now, how the plant is actually processing. That is like opening up half of your clothes to other people, which is also very it's scary for a lot of people. So that's also a problem by itself.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is the first step, and I think by having more and more people join into the blockchain environment in commercial production, and also I think what is interesting with Sriya, even even in our case, for example, it's very difficult for ordinary people to have access to see the data, right? Because it's private, confidential data as well as online pajak too, right? But in Syria, for the first time, anybody can see how blockchain works. All they have to do is just have a handphone, have a QR code, and they can see even all up to the minute detailed transaction, or who even the one who put in all those data on a daily basis, So then it's maybe lessen the mystery and the surrounding the blockchain. So then people, oh, this is what it means of having a blockchain into the business.
Something real that everyone can see, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, something.
We actually talked about a lot of things in our first several round discussions. We have a lot of questions from the audience as well, and these questions are actually going to dig in deep to each of you. So there will be different questions for each of you, but if you want to answer someone else's question as well, in addition, you may just let me know. You can raise your hand in Zoom. There's a raise your hand button now, and I'll see, and I'll give it over to you. All right, so I'm going to. The first question is actually for Imran. So the question is, okay, using blockchain technology means changing the habit. So I'm curious how Hara can work with the farmer in the agriculture. Presumably, it's hard to get them to learn about the technology. So how would you strategize for that, and how have you done so?
Well, getting technology, any technology into farmers is already difficult. So we do it step by step. So at the moment, the farmers are being helped by our field agent. The field agent is someone who is young and much more adapt to technology. So they're also the translate. They become the translator for the time being. But the other problem that we're having of why we cannot go directly to farmers yet is coverage. Unfortunately, and I think because of this pandemic situation now, everybody suddenly realized that our internet penetration is still not covering all these rural areas. So I think we are hoping in the next coming years, and thanks to the pandemic situation, then this is exposed, yeah. Because if we don't have those basic infrastructure, then I think we cannot accelerate the process with the farm to help these people in the rural areas.
So, are you going to have the farmers do things themselves, or are you still going to be focusing on agents? Is that something that you're going to do long term, or will you switch over to basically having the farmers being enabled on the technology in the future?
I think slowly we will go there because there will be hopefully more young people go into agriculture. And hopefully the coverage situation will improve. I think the technology will advance itself to make it far more easier. But because okay, this is the situation. A lot of people take for granted all the things you have in the city, right? There's still a lot of lack of digital infrastructure when you go to rural areas. Even our biggest problem right now in terms of financing is that most of the transaction is still pretty much cash basis. That's a logistical nightmare. So that's the thing that slowly, as a nation, I think we have to improve. But I believe that this pandemic situation perhaps will accelerate these changes. Because otherwise then it's becoming very difficult, right, to transform.
Right, and this is in terms of communicating to the farmers. Do you focus on the benefits for them, or how do you communicate with them regarding your Hara and what you do?
I think with same with any consumers. I think we just focusing on the benefit. like for example, okay, now by having their land polygons available for everyone, then it makes it easier for them to get access to financing, right? And then, okay, one of our achievements that we are so proud of, before this, farmers have the Indonesian farmers don't have access to commercial crop insurance. And even if they do, it took them up to 2 months to get the claim process. Okay, by having all this information digitally available, uh, right now we can provide crop insurance for these farmers, and we can reduce the claim process less than 2 weeks. Okay, so that is a huge benefit for the farmers because now they don't have to be worried when suddenly they have pests or uh, not enough rains, and somebody will covering their expenses.
Thank you, Pak Imran. I'm going to switch over to Ibu Mulia, and there are some questions for you as well here. And as you mentioned, the tax office will use blockchain technology. This is the question. How about cybersecurity considerations on this? And does this mean that the tax office will go more deep into the taxpayer data?
Okay, so I think it's two sides of questions, right? Like the security perspective, and then also like the data confidentiality, right? If I may break it up into two, right? The security perspective, that definitely, as we are operating in Indonesia, and then in that regard, I mentioned a little bit of the licenses that we got coming from Dirjen Pajak itself, and also like the Kominfo, and also the BI, Bank Indonesia, and lots of compliance that we have to go through. And one of it is definitely is the security perspective, right? And on top of that, we are also like acquiring the ISO kind of certifications for a security perspective. So we are complying and indeed performing above than what's required on the security perspective. And then when it comes to the data confidentiality, it's also like a come at the end of the day. Okay, I put it this way though. I'd like to challenge the thought process. Yeah, what is the confidentiality when we as an individual are even posting every hours of our activities on the net? We are posting our kids, we are posting like our house, we are posting everything, right? Even like the friends, the things that we do, the thing that we love, even like in a much deeper level though. And I think that's really like a little bit of a paradox, I would say. Like people in today's context is really like going into the net, and that they are really like open up. But of course, at the same time, we also understand like from a business process, from a confidentiality perspective, like I already mentioned earlier on, that there are sets of a compliance and a process that we have to comply on that. And we have been like performing above and beyond of those requirements. The other thing that I would like to highlight as well in that regard, take it from the benefit perspective. At the end of the day, we are in the era of data flooding, right? The data that's available in the market, even like you want to look into my name, you just type in my name, then everywhere, everything that I did for the last 1 decade, it could be like a pop-up right on the screen, right? And so much so about the confidentiality, right? And I think on that confidentiality, it will take like a two hands to a clap, in a sense like we just there is a one joke as well so on that. Whatever that you live on the digital world will stay there forever. Is that right, Pak Imran? Yeah, we may want to try to erase that, but it's gonna be staying there forever. So that's why, as an individual, it's a part of our kind of a responsibility as well to be like a wise decision on what you need to expose yourself, right? But then on the corporate side, of course, we have to comply on that part.
Can I add on
Thank
that?
you.
Yes, please, Pak.
Go ahead. Pak.
Yeah, because I need to also jump in because this is important. A lot of people are afraid of transparencies. uh, but I think that's why Vicky's project is very helpful in this case. So if you happen to have to visit one of the Padiki's clients' retail store in the future and have a QR code, and then you scan those QR code, and then you see the Sriya's page, and you can click on the block explorer, which is actually the blockchain version of a Google thingy, right? And then you can see that you can define which part of the information you want it to be open. In this case, Sriya decided that the name of the chicken butcher is actually open because people want to know who actually to actually do that on that particular day. But then there's also information in there in the blockchain explorer. If you click on it, then on every data there is an attestation. In that attestation, you have an idea, a has encrypted ID of the person who actually recorded those information. So that's the accountability part of it. But the name of that person is encrypted. So it is open for people to see, but at the same time, it is also protected, and it is very difficult to decrypt those information. So that is something that hopefully will also educate the people out there, so they can differentiate between being transparent and being also at the same time being private. But there is a choice you can make in blockchain.
Correct, Pak. And thank you for highlighting that. I believe it's the pseudonymous way of doing things, and I think there's a lot of things we can discuss as well. But since we're almost out of time, I'm going to give it over to Pak Vicky, and I would like to have your future outlook for your entire industry. Will there be many? Like after Sriya, will there be many followers? And how will it actually transform the industry of poultry and the way you do things? Go ahead, Pak.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I think the big dream that we have is actually we always say that think big, start small, move fast. Yeah, think big meaning that we want to be a leading player in the halal foods product in Indonesia someday. But the big things is actually the bigger things. Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country in the world, the net importer of foods halal product. So how can we be the how can we be
we can hear
the
you.
okay?
You froze a bit, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
how can we be the bigger player in the global context someday? So and therefore the things is actually it's not only for us as a company as a Sriya that, but also we have a big dream that someday we want a country to become the big player in the global halal food. So therefore that's why when I talk to the MUI, we talk to the KNKS and then to BI, and we just talked to Kadin a few days ago. This is something that actually we want to bring everyone, to embrace the technology, to be able to help us, to get into the bigger competitive advantage of the halal foods industry, and therefore I am a big believer in that. And then again, think big, start small. I start with our own company and then start with the one customer that we are embracing and asking them to participate, which is McDonald's Indonesia, which is good thing is actually McDonald's is a big reputable company, and therefore when we ask them to participate and they are willing to participate, to me it's a big win. Yeah, but I think the whole thing someday it become hopefully the connecting the dot between us as a manufacturer with the customer, with the market, with the distribution, with the farming, with the all the things, and therefore someday hopefully blockchain will enable us to create some kind of ecosystem in which everyone can have something that they can easily trace how their product can get into their mouth, for instance, and how they can really trust that the process is actually being done in a good manner. in a clear, transparent manner. And again, I echoing Pa Imran's question, comment that it takes a big commitment, of course, and trust as well from ourselves, but again, revolutionize the industry. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. I'm afraid we only have 1 minute left, but I would still like to have each of our panelists today, because this is such an interesting panel, to give like a final message. Let's say the message can be anything, should be related to what your business is and how blockchain is helping you, and just a one sentence overview from each of you. I'm going to start with Pak Imran, actually. Just one sentence. Final message. Oh, Pak Imran, I think you're on mute, or
Yeah, Pak Imran, you're mute.
Yeah, sorry. So one final message: this is the time to join the bandwagon. So hop in, okay? Because you don't have any other chances. While this pandemic situation will not going to repeat itself for another 100 years. So this is the time to join the bandwagon.
All right, thank you, Ibu Mulia. Go ahead.
I think I have like a 2 takeaway for our audience here. Yeah, don't be fast with all the buzzword of a blockchain and so forth and so on and so forth. Leave it to the experts. Yeah, leave it behind. But then it has to be coupled with the very good UI and the UX, and then for the users, eventually they don't feel the complexity of the back end kind of a processes. But then just focus on the benefit and the outcome that can they can sort of like experience out of it, right? And then the second part, for the one in the business, try to leapfrog. Like today is the time that we are really optimizing the power of a technology for a good deeds, though. Really for the good deeds. I like the comment coming from a Padiki. When you started off something, actually it will bring goods for everybody. Because if everybody follows suit with you, Pak, of course you are getting the benefit of a first entrance, right? But then it's gonna be like a giving the benefit to the whole community. So my takeaway, don't be fast with this buzzword. Make it simple. Emphasize on the outcome, and then the second part, continue with all the innovations to for the good deeds. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Diki, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think simple for me is one is really learn and understand what it is, because that's important. And then the next process is actually believe in it. And the third process is actually just embrace it. You know, like that's why it's always think big, start small, move fast. That's the for me is the when we embracing this, it's a new thing, but don't be afraid. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Pak Diki. And I would like to thank everyone in this outstanding panel. I've learned a lot. There's a lot of insightful information here. We have 200, 300 people watching us.
Okay.
Today, right at this exact instance, and I'm sure they have had a lot of insights coming from this panel. And again, I would like to thank everyone, Ibu Mulia, Diki, and of course Pak Imran. And we would like to give you a round of applause, even though we're all stuck at home. And I'm going to leave the applause. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pandu.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Imran.
Thank you.
Nice to be on the same train
Nice
with you
meeting you.
all. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Diki, again.
Thank you again. See you again. So we'll leave, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for
Thank you,
your
Pandu.
attendance, and we will be heading to the next speakers now.
Sure. Okay.
And I think it would be in the same room. So thank you for that. Well, that has been amazing. There's been a lot of discussions these days about how to implement blockchain, but not a lot of very real panels. A lot of the panels out there are very hyped and buzzword centric, not practical centric. A lot of the practicalities of implementing blockchain probably has been lost in a lot of other panels. I think the association focuses on not the hype, but actually on the business potential, which is different from hype. Because when we're talking about business potential, we're also talking about how to practically implement it. We have a set of new speakers for you out there. I'm hoping you guys can still join us for the next set of panelists. Um, and the next set of panelists will include some very interesting people as well. And these will be focusing more on our international speakers. I think we already have several coming in. Yes, I think. Hi, Charles.
How are you, Pendu? Thanks for having me. Great to connect here today.
Thank you, Charles. And is that Isabel? Hello.
Hi, Pandu. Hi, Charles. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Great to be seeing you guys.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. And Hanwen Chua. Hello, Hanwen.
Hello. Hi, Pandu.
Can you hear us?
Nice to meet everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Nice to meet everyone. All right. So the idea here today, we are already live, by the way. I can hear you fine, and the audience can hear you fine as well. There are 200 or 250 people in the audience right now, according to my dashboard right here. So you are all live. I'm going to be introducing you first. And each of you, I will introduce with your bios. And after the bios have been read out, we will show the videos. I think the committee is standing by on showing the videos. So I'm going to be starting by actually discussing about your bios first and how we might follow this conversation. There will also be a set of questions, but those questions will be after the video. All right, sounds good? All right. So if you guys have any questions or if you want to add some things, you can actually just message on Zoom or just raise your hand in Zoom as well. You can also raise your hand physically. I can actually see you. So, all right. I'm going to start by reading out your biographies. First of all, today we are actually with Hanwen Chua, Isabel Sumarli, and Charles Dosi. So I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Hanwen is an idealistic libertarian. He is seeking to build a community of active entrepreneurs and developers in the Zilliqa ecosystem. He currently helms the ZilHive tripartite program encompassing ZilHive Education, ZilHive Grants, and ZilHive Accelerator at Zilliqa. He holds a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from NJS. We also have Isabel Sumarli, who is involved in digital and innovation in hashtags PTE Ltd, or Stacks, a Singapore headquartered fintech firm, which is serving platforms for the financial industry driven by proprietary blockchain infrastructure. Stacks has the milestone achievement of being involved in central bank MAS blockchain initiative. We're going to ask you a few questions about this. This would be very interesting. Project Ubin, phase 5. And she manages strategic partnerships to build the digital ecosystem in Stacks. And Charles Dosi is the APAC director at Consensus. Prior to joining Consensus, Charles was with the Hong Kong government department Invest HK as head of fintech and set up an international team to attract top innovative fintech companies, entrepreneurs, and also investors from the mainland and overseas. In 2018, Charles was actually elected top 50 and top 200 fintech influencer in Hong Kong and Asia. Charles pursues training in both machine learning and artificial intelligence. All right. And personally, I would also like to thank Consensus for their collaboration with my company, Blocksphere.id. All right. So the idea here is now we will see the videos from our presenters. These are video presentations that are explaining about their company, how they're active in the world of blockchain, and how they're bringing value to the ecosystem. All right. I'm giving it over to the committee to play the video.
Hey everyone, I hope you guys are having a great time at Indonesia Blockchain Conference. I'm Hanwen, the SVP of Ecosystem Development at Zilliqa. So what is Zilliqa? Zilliqa is a high security, high performance blockchain platform. And we aimed to create and build an efficient and secure and interoperable smart contract platform that can support the next generation of FI solutions, open finance solutions. And our goal and our target market is within the ASEAN and India market. So how are we going to reach adoption stage? And that is through a three-prong approach. First, we have the open platform that's open source. The blockchain platform itself is free for anyone to develop and also to upgrade. And there's a smart contract platform and language that we've created that complements the blockchain platform. And we also have strategic partners that help to provide the necessary toolings that's required to build on top of these two things. And we have the ecosystem arm, which is called ZeroHive, that consists of the education, grants, and accelerator. And we work to try to create a pipeline for the talents to flow throughout the entire route and journey of adoption. And last, we provide technical consulting for anyone who wish to build on top of our platform. So, for example, HG Exchange, which is a security tokens offering platform, and Express, which is a SGD, a Singapore dollar stablecoin. So we work with them to create this kind of products and offer them unprecedented value. So why would you choose Zilliqa? Zilliqa has high security, meaning that it has a high number of nodes and high degree of decentralization, and we also have deterministic finality, which other blockchains do not offer. And of course, the functional language which we have created, called Zilla, enable you to be amenable to formal verification, getting a better guarantee that your conditions will not be violated. And we have a higher performance than compared to other blockchains, up to 1000 TPS, while remaining decentralized, which is solving one of the trilemma problems. And of course, it's very usable. It has very low transaction costs for each operation, and it's interoperable with the Ethereum and the Neo and Cosmos world. So what you see as a company, which is Zilliqa Research, is that we want to become one of the key players within the Zilliqa ecosystem, and also to continue to support the Zilliqa blockchain network. And throughout, and this is how we actually generate revenue to sustain ourselves, and at the same time make sure that ZIL itself accrues value when the blockchain network becomes more and more adopted. So this is the kind of like a map to show how we work within this whole ecosystem. You can think of us like Red Hat model, which is there's an open source software, and there's also at the same time closed source and proprietary software that we build for other players using our consulting services, or we invest in people through ZeroHive. This is our team. It consists of Amrit, who is our president, Colin, our chief commercial officer, and many other more who are experienced people who have more than 100 years of experience. So if you want to reach out to us, please feel free to email us at growth@zilliqa.com, and we will reply you promptly. Thanks for listening, and have a great time at Indonesia Blockchain Conference.
Hi everyone, apa kabar? My name is Isabel Sumarli, and I'm the Business Development Manager of Stacks. Stacks is actually a Singapore headquartered fintech firm that is providing a complete blockchain infrastructure to financial institutions, and that is, asset managers in the region, national stock exchanges, as well as global banks. In our first year, we have become a technology partner to more than 20 financial institutions, and we've also had the milestone achievement of being inside MAS's Project Ubin Phase 5. So that's actually the Singapore Central Bank's blockchain initiative, and we're really happy to be a part of that. So why are we doing this? Well, since the 1970s, capital markets have largely stayed the same. And to execute a transaction, financial institutions have to go through a complex and fragmented situation whereby there are long settlement cycles from 2 to 14 days, high reconciling costs, failed trades, etc. So we at Stack see ourselves to provide a common infrastructure for financial institutions to be able to trade, clear, settle, and reconcile instantly. And that means to say it's able to bring down the settlement period to same-day settlement, as well as driving down costs by 90%. Take for example our first platform, Trident, is being used by national stock exchanges as well as investment banks, and with smart contract technologies, these parties can handle bonds, equities, funds, securities throughout its lifecycle management, as well as to have instant settlement. So, another platform, Mercury, is being used to give asset managers and brokers a common infrastructure to have real time trade management. And with that, there is a 90% drop in reconciling costs. So, our latest product, Nathan, is being used by private banks to service structured products. And with the smart contract technology, it has shown that it's able to bring cost savings with 68% of man hours. So I'll be happy to share with you more about these benefits and looking forward to see you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Charles from Consensus. I'm really excited to join you today for the Indonesian Blockchain Conference, and I look forward to the conversation. Let me share my screen now. So my name is Charles Diosi. I'm the director of Consensus in Asia Pacific. And before joining Consensus, I was with the Hong Kong government as the head of fintech. In that context, I've been organizing with the team the Blockchain FinTech Week from Hong Kong, as well as many different other events. I've been in finance and financial services for some time now, and in the blockchain technology conversations for numerous years as well. Today, I'd like to tell you more about Ethereum. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with the protocol and the community, but it's good to get some numbers and some updates. Today, Ethereum is the world's largest smart contract platform. It brings together more than 300,000 developers globally, and every month there is more than 30,000 new developers building new applications on the protocol, on the platform. Ethereum allows you to deploy networks in a private or public manner. So you have this duality of options, which is very interesting for the world of enterprise. At Consensus today, we are more than 600 engineers globally. Every day, more than 80,000 developers are using Consensus products, and we've been tokenizing about $1 billion of assets with the software designed by Consensus for our customers. We are servicing many different types of organizations in multiple countries. This could be a regulator such as the MAS in Singapore or the European Commission, as well as Coinbase, Fidelity, some large banks, and various institutions. But we are also building networks for some of our customers, which are consortiums or group of companies. Comgo is one example, bringing the oil industry main players together around a blockchain business network, which has been designed and delivered by Consensus. And the toolbox we bring to our partners and projects, it's really a full stack of software, which is starting from the low layer with Ethereum enterprise clients such as Consensus Quorum, but also with middle layer like Orchestrate to help connect the blockchain and your application, and modules of applications to help you build a strong proposition for your customers. So I'm thinking of Codify Asset here, Codify Documents, Codify Data, and there is many others. And all these applications are mostly around the industry of asset management, capital market, DeFi, obviously, global trade and payments. We are very excited to be joining the event today. I look forward to the panel, and I wish you a great day. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, committee, for playing the video, and thank you, all of my panelists.
verticals that is very crucial. Because less middleman means that there's less fees that you need to pay off to people, and then it's more revenue coming to you. And that's, I guess, one of the best value propositions that blockchain has. As for what people could benefit from our blockchain particularly, it is a public blockchain. So in here, it's a trustless nature, and you do not have to exactly form a consortium in order to trust that the network can perform things in a format that you will not that will violate the conditions that you want to have, and that's it's one of the most powerful things. It enables you to build businesses without having to trust anyone else. And that's the same proposition that we have with any other public blockchains out there, and that's like Ethereum, and so which is the biggest blockchain platform out there. And yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you, Hanwen. Isabel, what do you think? What impact should a business get by using blockchain, and how would it do so with your fintech platforms?
Yes, definitely. Very pleased to share, and thanks for having me here once more. So, well, for us, we are very focused on the financial industry, and as for the impact of blockchain, definitely it always comes with cost savings as well as efficiencies and possible new revenue streams. So, in the case of our blockchain, Stacks blockchain, it's used to instantly trade, clear, settle, and reconcile. So financial institutions can actually drive down costs by as much as 90%. And it's dependent on cases like, for instance, if I were to give an example of our Mercury platform, it is reducing the trade breaks and manual reconciliations by as much as 90% efforts. And this is a problem that we found that asset managers and brokers actually face, during their time in everyday life. Let's say more than 60% trade breaks and more than half a day fixing these issues, which is actually a lot of time considering the digital era that we are currently in. So yeah, definitely the impact is about saving man hours, improving SCPs, freeing up resources for this specific case study.
Thank you, Isabel. I'm going to switch over to Charles, and the question is the same, but I think you have recent updates. So, of course, the question is what impact that a business can get by using blockchain, and how would your platform be able to do so? But I think you also have Quorum now, right? Not just Hyperledger Beso, and can you also share about that as well? But the primary question is what the impact you can get.
Absolutely, thank you, Pendu. The core proposition of blockchain is really to help with coordination and help companies and individuals to interact with one another more easily. So I think the first value proposition of blockchain platforms in general is to be able to build a stronger cooperative economy, which enables people to transact with one another. Of course, they can reduce costs, but more importantly, they can increase the revenues, reducing the risk within their transactions and increasing the speed of transactions in general. I'm not talking about the TPS here. I don't think the TPS is always as important as one would think. Today, we are doing a lot of business using email, and this is working fine. I think what is important is to have meaningful transactions and looking more at the economic bandwidth of your smart contract and your blockchain business network, rather than purely the speed of the transactions. As you mentioned, Pendu, about 2 weeks ago, Consensus announced a transaction with JP Morgan. JP Morgan is the US largest bank and the world largest, number 7 largest bank in the world. And essentially, this deal comes into 3 folds. So number one, Consensus has acquired Quorum as a technology, the blockchain technology, which is a derivative from Ethereum built by JP Morgan. Number two, JP Morgan has invested in Consensus, so they are now a shareholder of Consensus. They also have a seat at the board. And number three, JP Morgan becomes a multi-year customer of Consensus. So we are helping them as well as all the ecosystems they have built around Quorum to keep growing the JP Morgan coin, which remain a project from JP Morgan, as well as the IIN network. The IIN network is an equivalent or maybe an alternative to the SWIFT cross-border payment platform, which has been built on Quorum. And essentially now Consensus is able to bring to the enterprise community with the best mainnet client, that is Hyperledger Besu, as well as the most used permission chain Ethereum client globally, that is Quorum. And these two clients are now hosted under an umbrella brand within Consensus, which is called Consensus Quorum. So we give really the best of both worlds, having the best proposition in permission chain, the best proposition in mainnet access, and eventually over the years, most probably, the Go Quorum client will merge together with Hyperledger Besu to become one client able to serve both mainnet applications as well as permission chain applications. That's in a nutshell.
Thank you.
User view.
Yeah. Sorry, I just cut you off. I was disconnected a bit, so I didn't hear the last sentence. But can you repeat just the last sentence? Sure. If that's okay with you.
So eventually, the Go Quorum client, as well as the Hyperledger Besu client, will merge. And Hyperledger Besu will probably be the dominant client in Ethereum. This is our vision. So it takes some time to make sure the world of enterprise get the time to adapt. But essentially today, Hyperledger Besu has both capabilities of mainnet access plus permission chain, and Go Quorum has only permission chain access. So we're going to slowly give more features to Quorum, but most probably the two clients will merge in the coming years. And if we want to be a little bit technical, and I'm sure the audience will be okay with that, there is a difference between the Go Quorum client and Hyperledger Besu as you know it today. The Go Quorum is actually under GPL license, when actually Hyperledger Besu is under Apache 2 license. And it makes a very big difference in the world of enterprise, where you can build on top of open source software application and keep the IP of the application you're building.
Understood. I have a follow-up question, and I would like to also tell you, Charles, we actually have a really good mix of audience right now. Out of our 250 audience members right now, we see some technical people, but also mostly business people as well. And I think some of them would be very interested in you explaining further on you mentioned speed of transactions, TPS, versus meaningful transactions. What do you mean by meaningful transactions?
So you can look at TPS, so the speed of a transaction, and you can look at the value of a transaction. So for example, if I send you a WhatsApp, I just say, hello, Pendu, how are you? Can we meet tomorrow, or can we something? So it's just kind of not so high value transactions. It's just chit-chatting on the chat. If I send you an email with a purchase order, and there is all the details of the order I want to take from your factory, this email can be 1 minute late. There is so much value in my message to you. There is so much capital value and money value that it's important to think of your blockchain not buying the fastest car, but maybe buying the car which is more meaningful to your business. So of course there is some Ferrari which allows you to drive very fast, but maybe a Ferrari for a farmer is not exactly the car you would recommend. And maybe there is some cars which will be more convenient in a city environment, and some other cars will be better to use in the countryside. So I think it's important for all the executives in the room not to be obsessed with the technology itself, but really building in a reverse manner, kind of reverse engineer, and from the use case and the benefit you want to build and bring to your customers or your business. Later, from this use case, identifying the best technology. In some cases, it's going to be maybe Zilliqa. In some other cases, it's going to be Ethereum or maybe some others. But starting from the technology is probably not the best journey. Start from the use case, and then from the use case, identify the technology which is bringing easy, low-hanging fruit benefits, and from there grow the platform.
Thank you. And we're going to come back to you, Charles, but I would actually like to jump over to Isabel first. Isabel actually mentioned a few things, and this is a follow up to your earlier statements. You did assist the central bank's MAS blockchain initiative, the Project Ubin. I think it was phase 5. And you are currently doing fintech platforms. Now, I'm curious about what are the learnings that you've received from Project Ubin, and how do you apply them in your current fintech platform? Can you share further about that?
Yes, sure. So definitely. Well, since the 1970s, the capital markets have largely stayed the same. And because of that, that leads to long settlement time, high costs in the middle with multiple intermediaries. So basically, what we learned from our findings in Project Ubin was that we were able to successfully show that this dilemma can be solved for trades, which meaning to say that, the security and the payment could be exchanged conditionally at the same time, with certain conditions set in place by smart contracts. So, with this, it was shown to be a milestone that, we need not necessarily be kept, with the multiple legacy systems that we understand today that leads to a fragmented situation. So that is a case of how we are applying it for our platform called Trident. And this Trident platform is basically, both a multi-asset issuance platform as well as a settlement platform. So in this case, we were able to replicate it from Project Ubin, whereby we can issue a bond on the blockchain with Trident, and to have instant settlement or pre-configured customizable settlement. So this was what we actually did with our recent press release with Bursa Malaysia, which is the Malaysia Stock Exchange and their investment banks. So it's definitely a great learning experience that I believe we all have as a team. Being with the different central bodies and understanding their perspectives as well, and to see how smart contracts can actually revolutionize or help with the benefits, as well as testing blockchain as a immutable registry.
Thank you, Isabel. That was an amazing answer. It sounds like your company has learned a lot from Project Ubin. I'm pretty sure a lot of other companies are also going to be learning a lot from your platform as well. I'm going to skip over actually to Hanwin. So yeah, we're all rooting for you. I'm skipping over to Hanwin. And Hanwin, I saw in your bio that you're a libertarian. I'm a libertarian as well. I believe in decentralization of power as well as decentralization of technology. And I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on what's the future of decentralization in general? Like we know that we all will have a soft spot in our heart for blockchain because it allows decentralized technologies to incentivize node runners, of course. But what do you think about the future of decentralized technology in general? And how would it apply to businesses? Like I've seen a lot of people in the ecosystem, people coming into the ecosystem saying that, blockchain is going to ruin my business because I'm actually an intermediary. Because you're disintermediating me, I'm gone. So what would you say to people like that, Hanwin?
I think let's first answer the first question about what do I see decentralization in future. I think it's only going to accelerate as we go along. I know that most of the enterprise projects that has been trying to kind of like bridge the companies over in a sense before they go into the decentralized public chains, and that's and it's more of like a whole phase kind of process when eventually the end goal is really to have your products and your services on a public chain. And that's something that we realize too. It's a reality in the world that it's not going to be full pronged or like full dived in by any of the enterprises out there. And the reason why I see people want to do that is because they can actually interact with the users directly and build different kinds of business as opposed to what they are doing now. For example, let's say we take the example of the DeFi space. The DeFi protocols are incentivizing people, the users, which is liquidity providers and the lenders, by giving them governance tokens in return. And the governance tokens could accrue value by the protocol section, such as transaction fees of the protocol and stuff. And that's essentially a different way of viewing your own product in future. You are democratizing the ownership of a product. You're giving the users the power to govern the product in future. You are and you as a user, you are empowered to become something different. You're not just like somebody who was at the mercy of somebody else, and you could also have a say in whatever you are using. And that's the really interesting part about the whole decentralized world. I foresee that in future companies will become and slowly shift towards DAO-like model. Even though DAO took a long time, and that's always the whole problems of DAOs not working in 2016 and stuff. But I still see it as the eventual end goal. And you have revenue generating DAOs governing the revenues models of the future. And you would have more interesting companies and protocols springing up on not just one blockchain. There could be multiple different blockchains, and everyone interoperate with each other, and have a very liquid kind of exchange among each other.
So, are you saying that interoperability is going to be the name of the game of our industry in the next few years?
Yeah, for sure. It's not just interoperability with other public chains. It's also interoperability with private chains. It's essentially it's the same as the concept as the reality, right? When you as a small nation, for example, Singapore, cannot live without actually trading with somebody else. We cannot live on our own. As a public chain, if you are based in a certain region, you definitely need to do trades with somebody else, and that's where the interoperability things is crucial for any chains to survive.
All right, thank you, Hanwon. We're going to go back to that. I currently have a question, and I'm going to switch it up. I'm going directly to Charles. You mentioned earlier that there are different blockchains for different use cases, and there are differences of needs from the technology perspective and differences of use case. Can you mention in more examples? And be warned, the audience is some are technical, some are not. So from an executive level, can you give some examples of use cases and how, like, use cases and what blockchain to choose for that certain use case? And it could be very generic. You don't have to mention any. You can mention customers if you'd like, but if you don't want to, it's okay. Go ahead, Charles.
One of the biggest use cases.
Oh, I think you're on mute. Okay, go ahead.
One of the biggest.
You were rubber banding earlier. Yeah, go ahead. Try again.
One of the biggest use cases today on blockchain for enterprise is what we call the global trade, everything related to trade finance, financing the trade in general. You've got two main examples here, which are a global success. One of them is Comgo. Comgo is a blockchain platform helping the oil traders to get financing and manage all the shipping aspect of their global trade of oil. Another interesting platform also for trade finance is called Covantis. Covantis is also built on Ethereum. It brings together about 70% of the global trade of agricultural commodities such as sugar, coffee, soybeans, and all the trade moved to a blockchain-based platform where the financing is much more quicker, and all the management of the paperwork around goods inspection and goods shipping get done on a platform shared by all the stakeholders. So that's number one. Trade finance. Another big use case is everything related to the capital market. So when you look at the issuance of funds, if you look at the trading of securities, if they are tokenized, or maybe the post trading, clearing and settlement, that's where there is a lot of different actors to coordinate between the custodian, between the buyer, the seller, and the financier. So that's another strong use case for blockchain. Where we see the technology moving fast now is all around the use cases of payment. CBDCs are one example, and it's a very hot topic, especially here in Asia. And Consensus is at the forefront, building actively for government CBDC initiative. So CBDCs and payment is a use case also to accelerate or maybe disintermediate the payments between suppliers and buyers, for example. And then you can go a little bit deeper with DeFi. You mentioned DeFi. DeFi is a very interesting experimentation phase within our ecosystem. Most of it is happening today on Ethereum, and that brings a lot of new innovation and new people building on top of that. Maybe coming back to your point, which technology will be best for which use case? I think it's important to start from the use case, and then it's important to look at how much of an effort it will be for the partners which will be trading around this blockchain platform to connect to your platform. And that's where we're going to see multiple blockchain, but there will be like mainstream blockchain, which will be used very widely. And Ethereum is a very strong candidate for that. So you don't want to have one blockchain for each use case. This is not going to work this way. The same way you don't have a mobile phone for chatting and another mobile phone for pictures and another mobile phone for maybe emails. Everything is into one. So you will have different families of blockchain, most probably, but the market will naturally adopt the blockchains which are ready for the most use case possible, with a big competition within the service providers and the abundance of tools to develop and implement this blockchain. So that's where the specification of a technology is not so important, but the ecosystem around the technology is very important, because it means you get suddenly, if you are building on Ethereum, you are building with 350,000 other developers which have already open sourced some code, or they have already built a platform for a bank, or maybe some others have already built a platform for an exchange or a government. And suddenly everyone works, create a bigger cake, because we can all benefit from working on the same platform.
Thank you, Charles. That's an interesting topic. Now we'll revert to that. I see some differences of opinion as well in the chat. I would like to remind the audience that if you want to ask a question, you can ask directly through our question and answer system, not just in the chat. So please do formally ask to the audience. And speaking to the audience, I'm going to skip over to basically to Isabel, actually. Isabel, you mentioned how you are actually serving fintech and your financial technology ecosystem is on a proprietary blockchain infrastructure. Can you mention some like clear use cases that you've done in the past and how they've actually added value to your, well, either to the fintech firms you service or to their customers? Go ahead.
Yes, sure. Happy to share about the experiences in the region as well. So first of all, back in Singapore, we have the Singapore Central Bank's Project Ubin, where we were involved in. And regarding that, it was whereby we were connected to the Ubin payment, such that every transaction on the Stacks blockchain could be served by an instant payment that runs through the central bank. And, let's say an extension of that is, let's say if Indonesia has such a system, then we will hope to be able to connect to. And I guess for that particular case, it shows that the power of blockchain in business is that even the government MES is investigating into blockchain. And, there's an official Project Ubin report, which I'm also happy to show with you, involving our, blockchain details. So, besides that, let's say in Hong Kong, there is a private bank that is, asking about structured products and how can we actually increase the efficiencies for that, because, it has so many very short window of time frames. It's, they have limited capacity to service the clients according to the deadlines, and what can they do, So what we did was to be able to use blockchain as a manner such that these processes don't have to be linear, sequential. They can rather be, done concurrently at the same time. So this increases their client servicing capacity, as well as, reducing the man hours that they actually have to spend on. And along with, I guess, structured products as well as asset management, they're also looking at NAV and how can they see NAV in more real-time situations. So that is where we came up with this NAV module, whereby they can actually see the NAV in real time so that they can help with their position balances. So I have to share more. Yeah.
But
Right. So similarly,
go ahead. Sorry, I was speaking over you, but you can also go into, because Charles actually mentioned this, the approach model. Well, what do you think about like the future of blockchain? Would one approach dominate, or will there be specific technologies for each use case, or will there be specific technologies for each family of use cases? What do you think as a blockchain practitioner?
So definitely, I agree with Charles in the sense that, it's really a lot about an ecosystem play as well, and a network effect to have, at least an MVP in a pair, in syncing up together, which is a minimum viable ecosystem. And that's also how we have been approaching the situations, basically in the different verticals or the different use cases. Definitely agree on that. And there are perhaps different approaches in different use cases, domain areas to serve different pain points. I also see, in terms of outlook, that the COVID has a potential to accelerate the adoption of digital technologies and potentially blockchain as well to save costs, because that there are compressing margins as well in certain industries. And I guess in terms of the uptake for the different cultures and countries, different regions, it's based on, regulatory culture and the mindset as well, the adaptability. So let's say if some regions are still in a learning phase, it's more about educating them and letting them understand more about it. So they need some more exposure and time to learn about it.
Interesting. So I've been in many panels during the pandemic, and COVID has always been a topic. Like any panel is always mentioned COVID. I think it's not just. I think it's always related to COVID these days. Everything that we do, even like things that are non-blockchain, are related. But blockchain in particular is a very interesting topic to speak in relation to COVID. We'll get back to that. To be fair, now I'm actually going to jump over to Hanwen, and I would like Hanwen to share about his platform's use cases, previous use cases that you can mention in this discussion, and also what you think about, what would one approach dominate, or will there be specific technologies for specific use cases? So actually, two questions: use case and the future approach. Go ahead, Hanwen.
Thanks, Ranju. So on Zilliqa, our key focus is within ASEAN 10 and India, and that's where, like for example, for the use cases that we have been working with our partners is experts trying to create a Singapore dollar stablecoin, and we succeeded in doing that in September, which is this month, and we are looking at how we can build up eventually sort of like a ASEAN stablecoin forex exchange on Zilliqa in order to using a decentralized exchange to power that. It's if you use something like curved on the Ethereum before, you could kind of like envision what it will be like on Zilliqa. And that's where I think one of the some of the better use cases that can pop up after this is completed would be something like remittance services. Like you can use it to send your someone else like IDR with SGD that you own, and it's very powerful because you can bypass the entire banking ecosystem at all and entirely, and that's where we see the one of the bigger use cases vertical for us. And second thing is really about gaming. We are building something like an NFT ecosystem also, and we are trying to talk up with all the different gaming partners out there within Singapore to try to build up the sort of like an NFT like consortium where we can build up like different kinds of in-game items and try to value it with cryptocurrencies, and that's where we envision funding of games would go on to be in future. It's sort of like you need to go to the arcade and then you change it for arcade coin and you can use it to play whatever games you want and to purchase any of the items. And that currency itself would be the funding mechanisms, and it could be done through some of the innovative process that has been done on Ethereum, for example, liquidity mining and so on. Yeah, that's the second thing that we're looking at. The last part will be the one of the enterprise use cases that we have been working on with our sister company. It's called Achilles. It's on trying to build this advertising network on top of the blockchain. So this is one of the, I would say, one of the use cases where a high throughput blockchain could come in. Trying to do reconciliation of the impressions of advertisements on the online, and that's where is where they are working on. And one of the cost savings that they have done within the as in one of the pilot programs that they've done with I think Pepsi or Lay's recently was allows the company who are running the campaign to save up to like 30% of the costs by cutting away some of the middlemen, and they are trying to like focus down on that and try to eliminate more of the middlemen as possible, and to let the advertisers has direct touch with the consumers and to reward them in the process of doing giving them this information. So yeah, I would say that these are the few use cases that that we are really working on.
Okay, the second part of the question is, would one approach dominate? Would one approach dominate per specific use case, per ecosystem? What do you think?
I think I agree with
As in
Charles.
the technology approach. Yeah. Okay.
I do agree with Charles when it comes down to network effect. It's very important, especially when if you don't see other people building on top of the blockchain and you do not have the sufficient funding to buy people, which is what I think Tron did and all the EOS did. I don't see that don't see a healthy ecosystem building up. So it really comes down to how you can build up the whole your teachers also at the same time so that they can create curriculums. You need to go to enterprises to talk to them, to educate them on like the how blockchain could benefit their businesses, and you need to give them grants in order to create the MVP. And in the end, you also need to have a sufficiently large investment fund in order to fund all the startups that's propping up in your ecosystem. So those are the things that you need to invest in, and there's a lot to do. To be honest, in order to create this network effect to sustain your ecosystem. And so I wouldn't say that there will be many players like thousands of different blockchains out there with different use cases. There will be a few players, and I feel it's more of a regional play. It's more of like whether you have the outreach in this region, whether you have the funds that's deployed properly in this region, that you can have sufficient network effect that you can drive and dominate this region. And that's where I see the play will be like. And I would say that the blockchains will be probably distributed in terms of their demographics, and they will be trading against each other. And that's where the interoperability part comes into play, similar to how nations works.
Okay, so this is interesting because we have several questions here that are effectively asking you guys the same thing. I'm actually just going to read this out. Will you integrate or have you integrated with other crypto or blockchain ecosystem besides your own, for other countries, for example, or have any of you ever done that? And can you share some takeaways? That's the question from the audience. That's not from me. I'm going to randomly choose, maybe starting with Charles. Do you have any experience or something that, well, of course, you can publicly share?
Sure. I think at consensus, we believe Ethereum will be a mainstream and multi-use blockchain, but we have also built over the years a lot of relationship and projects with other blockchains or other decentralized systems. One of the public relationship we have, which we are growing right now, if you follow closely, we launched a few weeks ago a global hackathon and bootcamp to integrate Ethereum together with IPFS. So IPFS is a distributed data storage blockchain. It's now in the early days of its deployment, and Consensus is working very actively to make sure that anyone who is building on Ethereum will get a very smooth experience to integrate also the distributed file system options from IPFS. So that's an example where we are building together and connecting together. Another product of Consensus is called Truffle. Truffle is originally a Solidity kind of programming software to help the developers to write and edit their smart contract and works on Solidity. But today, Truffle is open to some other chains. So by using Truffle, you can also write smart contract and build on Tezos. You can also write smart contract and build on Corda. So you see some of the product of Consensus being more and more open to some other complementary chains, which have different propositions from us, which have an existing ecosystem, and which we are always happy to create bridge when they are meaningful. So the same way the internet 20 years ago started with a patchwork of different intranets. Everyone was adding intranet at the time, and I think the way the blockchain industry is making progress is following a very similar pattern to this growth of the internet. It starts with different blockchain technologies, and eventually all these blockchain get interconnected and create this new generation as a third, number 3 generation of internet, which we call Web3. It's not going to be made of thousands of technologies, but you will probably see like some mainstream technologies, and each technology, should it be Zilliqa, Ethereum, or many others, will find their own niche, and their specification will be probably focusing on those niches. Maybe some application will need very high TPS, some others will need very high or very complex value of transactions, and everyone will find his space. But don't imagine there will be hundreds of blockchain. The market will not be able to handle that. It's probably a safe bet to think there will be like 5, maybe 10 blockchains surviving. And Ethereum is, we believe, an extremely strong candidate for that. And the other will merge or find some other space for them.
Yeah. So consolidation, merging, and survival, basically.
Exactly.
I would like to actually pose the same question, and this is a good question from the audience. I wish I knew who asked this. This is anonymous, by the way. So what do you think? What do you think, Hanwen? Have you integrated with other crypto players in the crypto or blockchain ecosystem, and can you share your experience? Go ahead.
Yeah, we have we are bridging our assets over to Ethereum space because that's where the majority of liquidity is. That's the reality right now. That Ethereum still is one of the most liquid platforms when it comes down to assets, and we are also working to bridge our platform together with Cosmos, and that's where we are working with players like, for example, Torchain, for example, Switcho, which are Cosmos-based Tendermint chains, and we're trying to build this liquidity bridge over also at the same time. So yeah, that's we think that working with different chains it's definitely a thing that we need to do. It's a must for us. So we are always working looking towards to finding good partners that we can work with and try to get it done.
Thank you, Hanwin. I'm going to pose a slightly different question to Isabel. Oh, can you share about your experiences in integrating technologies, not just blockchain, but like multiple technologies into your blockchain, existing technologies into your blockchain? And can you share your experience and maybe if you can share use cases, that would be fine as well. Go ahead, Isabel.
Yes, sure. So we've showcased.
Hello.
Hi, are you able to hear me? Right.
Yes,
okay.
now we can. Go
so
ahead.
actually, we were able to showcase that we interoperability with JP Morgan's Quorum at a time. So now I guess it's under consensus. So when we were in the Project Ubin, we were able to showcase that interoperability, which means that the digital assets can actually be portable. And because normally each technology company traditionally had their own closed system, so that was a milestone advancement at that time. So there was a cross-chain integration whereby one network was focusing on the movement of securities and the other network was focusing on the movement of payments. And besides that, in terms of more traditional integrations, we were also able to clinch a strategic partnership with Dell in the sense that we were able to deploy the blockchain on premise, so on top of Dell machines on premise, and we actually had a very successful use case for that, achieving very high TPS. Yes, very 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 high TPS. So it's comfortable
Amazing.
for companies.
Okay, so guys,
yeah.
Sorry.
Sure.
This is the perils of digital webinars. So, okay, so guys, we're actually over time, and people are shouting in my ear. So, I'm going to give one last round, though, for all of you as a final message. And this is a question that would be applicable for Indonesia itself. What does Indonesia, like my country, needs to do to catch up, like with other countries who have been actively using blockchain? What do you guys think? And can you give it just like a very short message and how we would be able to do it? Okay, I'm going to start with ladies first, with Isabel first. Go ahead, Isabel.
Right, sure. So I guess I would be reflecting on the cases that I know as well and how it could potentially apply to Indonesia. So in the case of, let's say, Bursa with, Malaysia, for them, what they stand to gain is that transactional tracking and ownership. And I think that's something important for the Indonesia economy as well, in the sense of, let's say, a digital registry for holdings and tracking movements with verifiable audit trails. So Indonesia tends to be still very paper intensive and manual. So this is a case whereby we were able to do so, and potentially in Indonesia's case, let's say it could be a study for sukuks to ramp up the sukuk market activities, because for the underserved Sharia markets. And this ties in with the current need to provide credit more easily and complementary to government strategies. Local Indonesian banks could potentially benefit if an Indonesian SOE, state-owned enterprise, were to issue these bonds, loans, or sukuks. And on the blockchain, it will be more efficient and lower costs. On the other side of the game, well, as I mentioned about Indonesia's how we know it is that it's very paper intensive and manual. Sometimes there's a lot to have to check back and forth about the manual processes. So potentially they could explore, pilots for e-document smart contracts. And let's say there are multi-party documentational approvals for invoices or SME loan approvals. And this can actually help the turnaround of capital approval, as well as funds being dispersed more quickly, which is very critical and essential in this COVID period. That the potentially government or the Indonesian banks could help with, or seek to increase.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. That was amazing. Thank you for that. I'm going to go to Hanwan. Give us a short message on what Indonesia should do to catch up.
I will be honest, right? I would say that relax on the regulation part, because if I'm not wrong, on the Indonesia side, you cannot accept cryptocurrencies as payment for any goods and services, and that is a hindrance, I would say, to adoption, because that applies also to Indonesia stablecoin, if I'm not wrong. So IDR, TAE, and any kind of IDR stablecoins. So that is this is a huge blocker when it comes down to adoption, and we really hope that we will be able to change the minds of the regulators, and maybe if that changes, I would see a huge boom coming up in Indonesia, especially with so many developers within Indonesia that's eager to build any kinds of decentralized applications on top of blockchains.
Okay. Next session, by the way, for the audience listening, we will explore the blockchain policies and its institutions. So if you want to stick around for that, that's actually going to be the topic for the next session. But good point. I'm not working for the government, so I can't comment on that. I'm just going to skip over to Charles. Final message, Charles. What do you think about Indonesia and how we can catch up?
I think Indonesia is not late. Indonesia is starting its blockchain journey as many other countries. You are building a beautiful infrastructure, and I think if you're working for a company, if you're a developer or an executive, the most urgent things to do is to start experimenting. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to miss and make some small mistake. In other words, start the learning curve, and don't be afraid of blockchain. Eventually, blockchain will be totally invisible to the users. We are in the